the behavior of the average male today. They don't have standards, they don't have control over their emotions, and they allow their women to do obnoxious things like sleep with their son's best friend. When you speak the truth, it offends people. One of the worst choices a guy can make, choosing the mother of his children, is to find a woman that hasn't made bad choices in the past, meaning she hasn't been with a lot of guys. You know, if women weren't hypergamous,
and you're saying in that instance, Becky's hot, and that's what did it for the guy.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was hot. You know, she returned my text. She touched my pee-pee. So we got into the long-term relationship. And most guys don't have an abundance mindset. They don't have experience with women. They don't understand, you know, the reality of what women respond to, why they leave men, why they choose men, and all that sort of stuff. So I deal with a lot of that in my videos now on YouTube and my book, and, you know, so on and so forth.
You're like Will Smith in that movie where he was like the dating expert or something. What was that? Hitch,
except for Will Smith is a dork and really doesn't live his life correctly. I mean, look what he allowed to happen to himself. You know, he let his emotions get the better of himself, and he walked up on a stage and punched one of his friends right in the face. He lets his wife go out and bang his son's best friend.
Okay, stop. Keep it right there. Is that not okay from a subconscious, psycho, whatever perspective? To me, watching this from the outside, I have no idea what's going on in his personal life. I feel bad for him for what happened. But do we not all believe that that's why that happened? Like his wife's doing things that he's clearly not comfortable with. And he eventually, and people are, and you know, the guys out there, Chris Rock's talking shit. The guy snaps. He was probably so pent up and pissed off because he's living his life one way, his wife is living another, and he looks like an asshole after he's the quote unquote epitome of success, and the dude breaks. I mean, is that I'm not a psychiatrist, but it looks pretty clear to me.
That's the behavior of the average male today. You know, they don't have standards, they don't have control over their emotions, and they allow their women to do obnoxious things like sleep with their son's best friend, right? Like, what guy 20 years ago would say, yeah, cuckoldry is absolutely acceptable in my house? It bothers men. There's no time in history where men accepted letting their woman sleep with other men. But it's only today. Like, you take a look at media outlets, and they're trying to normalize the pussification of the Western male, right? Oh, you know, just look the other way when she runs around, you know, behind your back, because if guys are doing it, then women should do it too, right? So there's all these sort of lies that are perpetrated in society that are getting amplified, and it's demasculizing men and it's masculizing women. I don't think it's good overall for the direction that we're heading in, but that's just the reality of the world that we live in today.
I have so many questions. So for me,
you guys want to buckle in for the real deep stuff? Let's keep diving down.
No, but when you get hit in the gut, sometimes you got to take a step back.
No, but Rich, for me,
I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, but for me, it's real simple. I'm a Christian, believe in God. There's no mention of God anymore. There's no expectations. There's no forever. There's no long-termism left anymore. There's no let's work this thing out anymore. It's everyone cut bait. There's a lot of things that are going on other than just men screwing up. I think when a man looks for a woman, we're values-based decision-making. You get into a relationship, well, what are your values? Men don't even know what our values are. Like you said, touch PP and get together. So there's so much more to it. I mean, I think as you're a male and you're young and you're thinking about this, what do you want your life to look like? When we got married, me and my wife, I have 6 children. We homeschool our kids. We got married. My wife already had the expectation of, I sort of want to stay home. You can go to work and I'll be in the background. I'll raise the kids. You know, as the kids got older, now we have the podcast together. We're working together. But that's what the expectation was when we got married. Not that, hey, I'm going to go out, become a lawyer, and we're going to have student debt. So I think all of you men out there, what is the expectation? When you start dating, what does it look like for you? I mean, do you want to comment on that? Because I think that's where the stepping stone is. What are your values and what is the expectation of this relationship?
Yeah, that's an interesting talking point from the sort of Christian, more or less like the traditional conservative sort of community. Like I've been married for 30 years. We've got 6 kids. I've talked to a few guys like that. And that social contract, existed for a long, long time. And I think religion overall is probably, good for society. I think it's good for long-term marriages. It seems to be good for families and children. But the problem with it today is that that's another lie that's being perpetrated. So a very common thing that guys will start to see more and more on dating apps today. So you can take the average, 30-year-old guy that downloads Tinder or Bumble and starts to swipe, and he'll start looking at women his age or younger, typically. And it's not that uncommon to see a pregnant gal on a dating app with another man's seed in her belly, with 2 or 3 other children in tow from other men, claiming that she's gotten right with God, is looking for a man of God, and is in this for something serious now. Only an absolute fool and tool of society today would take that on. But the problem is that even things like religion are telling gals, well, as long as you get right with God, you'll be forgiven for your past sins or bad choices. And then, here we are where they try to, Christian mingle them up, sort of thing. And we know, statistically speaking, that one of the worst choices a guy can make for a long-term relationship, or choosing the mother of his children, let's say, which is probably a better way to sort of distill it, because that's the whole point of marriage, really, is to raise a family and have children and pass on your name and your DNA, sort of thing, is to find a woman that hasn't made bad choices in the past, meaning she hasn't been with a lot of guys. A woman with a notch count, as I call it, generally today, of 0 to 1 has a very low probability of getting divorced. Whereas a woman with a notch count of 3, 4, as it escalates to 10, 12, and they stop collecting the data after 15. And by the way, it's not that uncommon for a college-age woman today to have slept with 25 or more guys by the time she finishes college or university. The chances of divorce increase dramatically. And not only do the chances of divorce increase dramatically, but the chances of her being depressed, having multiple abortions, being on SSRIs, like, you can go right down the scale. Promiscuity is very, very bad for women. But that, again, is one of the lies that they've sold society, is that women can be as promiscuous as men without consequences. And that's simply not true. The data doesn't reflect that whatsoever.
And you have an active channel that's not shut down, and you're saying this stuff.
Yeah, you have to be careful about the way that you have these conversations. Yeah, it's an interesting line that, you have to walk when you have these conversations. Like, I was doing this in 2016 and 2017, long before some of the like guys like Andrew Tate, I'm sure your audience have probably heard of, now, we're even making the prolific, bold statements, that they are still today. But it's a fine line that you have to walk to have these conversations, because when you speak the truth, it offends people. Like, bombers get flack when they're over the target, and you have to be very, very careful about when you're flying over the target.